I am making a sword soul deck profile. I've honestly been trying to figure out how to play the deck, and I figured I'd go ahead and make a deck profile for what I already have, so that way if anyone has any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, they can go ahead and comment in the comment section. Although I will go ahead and start off, I want to try combining or replacing all the tenyi cards in this deck with the Yangzing monsters. Mainly just because I really like Yangzings and I want to play them again. I just want to test combining it with a deck that's proven to be meta relevant. So without any further ado, starting off with the monsters, I play 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Adhara. Tenyi Spirit Adhara has the effect that you can special summon it while you control no effect monsters. And then it has the grave effect. If you control a face-up non-effect monster, you banish this card from your hand or graveyard to target one of your banished worm monsters, except for the Tenyi Spirit Adhara that you activated, to then add it to your hand. I mainly just like this card because of how you're able to use it to recur some of your banished worm monsters. Namely, like, if you should banish Swordsoul Milyi or Taye. I also play 3 copies of Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. Ecclesia is able to special summon herself from your hand while your opponent controls more monsters than you do. And as well as you can also tribute this monster during the main phase as a quick effect. Then be able to special summon a Sword Soul or Fallen of Alabaz from your deck. And then during the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. That effect is never used in my build, although I have seen some Sword Soul Alabaz deck profiles that I kind of want to try those as well. Next, I play 3 copies of Sword Soul Moye. Moye has the effect that if it's normal or special summoned, you can reveal a Sword Soul card or a worm monster that's in your hand. Then she's able to special summon a Sword Soul token. That is a level 4 water worm with 0 attack and defense and is a tuner. However, when you have a Sword Soul token, whoever summoned the token that turn cannot special summon from the extra deck except synchros while they control that token, which is not a problem because usually that token is going to go away really fast. Next, I play 2 copies of Sword Soul of Taye. Taye has the effect if you can banish a Sword Soul card or a worm monster from your graveyard, special summon a Sword Soul token, and then the whole you can't summon except synchros. And then this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material. You can send a Sword Soul card or a worm from your deck to the graveyard. You only use that effect to Sword Soul Taye once per turn. Usually you'll use Taye to send a Tenyi that has a grave effect that you want right then, or you want to use later. And I don't... My bad, I forgot to mention, Moyi also has the effect that if it's sent to the graveyard for a synchro summon of a worm, you can draw a card. Next, I play 3 copies of Sword Soul Strategist Longyuan. Longyuan has the effect that you can discard a Sword Soul card or a worm, a Sword Soul or other worm, to special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, special summon a Sword Soul token. And then, if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. You can use each effect once per turn. That's something I forgot to mention with the others, is that Moyi, Ecclesia, Taye are all also once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Vishuddha. Vishuddha has the effect that, again, if you can build control an effect monster, you can special summon it from your hand. And then if this card is... I can't word. I apologize. Anyway, Vishuddha has the effect that you can banish the card from your hand or graveyard while you control a non-effect monster. So then be able to target one card your opponent controls, return to the hand. And you only use the effect of Tenyi Spirit Vishuddha once per turn. And then I play 3 copies of Ashuna. Ashuna has the same summoning effect as the other Tenyis. And then you can banish the card from your hand or graveyard. Special summon a Tenyi monster from your deck except for another Ashuna. And then you cannot special summon for the rest monsters for the rest of the turn except for worm monsters. So Ashuna is the only restricting card in this deck, as if you use the effect to summon a Tenyi, you are locked into worms, so you can't summon anything like Baron. And I think one other monster in my extra that I'm using, just because I want to test it. But honestly, it'd probably be better if I were playing Savage Dragon instead of the card I'm testing. Anyway, for the hand traps, now I play 3 copies of Drone Lockbird, just because I like being able to stop my opponent from searching, especially with Kashtira able to go activate Terraforming, get Pressure Planet, get Unicorn get Theosis, and then Theosis summon Fenrir. As if you can use Droll at the Terraforming just to stop it all, which I love. Which I should specify, Droll and Lockbird just makes so that when your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, except during the draw phase, you can activate this card so your opponent can no longer add cards from their deck to their hand. And this does include drawing. Next, I play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This just lets you be able to discard it to stop your opponent from summoning a monster from deck, adding a card from deck to hand, or sending a card from deck to grave. It's overall just a really great hand trap. And to finish off the hand traps, I also play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Normally I'd have traps be at the very end, but I figured I'd have all the hand traps be right here. Infinite Impermanence can be activated from your hand while you control no cards, where you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, and negate its effects till the end of the turn. And then if this card was set on the field when it was activated, then it negates all spells and traps in its column. For the spells, I play 1 copy of Sword Soul Sacred Summit. Sacred Summit has the effect that you can target a Sword Soul monster in graveyard, or if you control a Synchro monster, you can target a Worm monster instead, special summon it, and then if this card is banished, you can target a Sword Soul monster or Worm. You control, increase, or decrease its level by 1 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Sword Soul Sacred Summit once per turn. Next, I play 1 copy of Called by the Grave. This is just so you can stop hand traps, or if your opponent's trying to target a monster in the grave to summon, or move to the hand, you can use this to remove that monster from play. And then negates the effects of all monsters with that same monster's effect for the rest of the turn. Then I play 1 copy of Monster Reborn just as an extender. Next, I play 2 copies of Heavenly Dragon Circle. Dragon Circle lets you tribute a worm monster to add a worm from your deck to your hand. Or if you attributed a non-effect monster, then you can special summon it instead. And then during your main phase, if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add a Tenyi card from your deck to your hand. And you can only use each effect of the Heavenly Dragon Circle once per turn. Next, I play 3 copies of Sword Soul Emergence. Emergence has the effect that you can add a Sword Soul monster from your deck to your hand, or if you control a Synchro monster, you can add a Worm monster instead. And if this card is banished, you can target a Sword Soul or a Worm you control, increase or decrease its level by 1 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. This is one of your opening cards, or one of your starters, or it can just help to fix your hand. Next, I play 3 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. This is just used because if your opponent uses a hand trap against you or activates any monster effect during main phase 1, you can activate one of 3 effects. where you can look at your opponent's hand and shuffle a card in it back into the deck. You can draw 2 cards, or you can take control of an opponent's monster until the end of the turn. And you can only activate 1 talent per turn. One thing I've honestly thought about doing was taking out at least 1 talent for Change of Heart. Which, as long as I remember correctly, yeah, one of the link monsters in this deck is somewhat generic, as long as you're link summoning it with a link monster. As long as a link monster is involved, it's generic. And then to finish off the deck for the traps, I play 1 copy of swordsoul. I can't read the name. Swordsoul Blackout. Blackout has the effect you can target a worm you control, and 2 cards your opponent controls, destroy them. And this card is banished. You can special summon 1 swordsoul token. Again, you can't summon anything from the extra deck except for Synchros while you control the token. Then you can only use each effect as swordsoul Blackout once per turn. And then finally, I play the 1 copy of 9 Pillars of the Yangzing. I don't know how I feel about this card yet, as it's mostly effective in the deck when you have Denlong, which I do not have a Denlong. So, But 9 Pillars has the effect that when your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, while you control a Yangzing monster, you can negate that effect, shuffle it back into the deck, and then you can destroy 1 Yangzing card you control. This is mainly just here because it's a Solemn Judgment that destroys Yangzings and then triggers their destruction effects. But that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the side. So for your link monsters, I play 3 copies of Monk of the Tenyi. This is in here mainly as your non-effect monster, as it just requires 1 non-link Tenyi monster. So you can special summon, do something like special summon a Shuna, link it off for this, and then use the Shuna's effect, summon a Tenyi or add a Tenyi. I don't remember. You add or summon a Tenyi, and then you can continue to play through that. Then I play 1 Shaman of the Tenyi. Shaman has the effect that you can discard a card, target a worm monster. I'm terrible at remembering cards effect. But you can discard a card, target a worm monster in your graveyard, special summon it, or you can't activate the summoned monster's effects. Or special summon it. My bad. You summon that monster, but for the rest of the turn you cannot activate the effects of monsters from the extra deck except worm monsters. And I don't remember how relevant the rest is. I entirely screwed up that effect. You can discard a card, target a worm, special summon it. Also, for the rest of this turn, cannot activate the effect on monsters special summon from the extra deck except Tenyi monsters. And then when an attack is declared involving your face-up non-effect monster, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it. You can use each effect of Shaman of the Tenyi once per turn. And then to finish off the links, I play 1 copy of Draco Master of the Tenyi. Draco Master cannot be destroyed at battle with an effect monster. And then if you control no other effect monsters, you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls, up to the number of non-effect monsters you control and or in your graveyard. You can only use this effect of Draco Master of the Tenyi once per turn. Usually Draco Master of the Tenyi is not being summoned unless you have 2 or 3 monks in your graveyard, so if you're able to use this effect, you're going to be destroying 3 cards. For the Synchros, I play 1 copy of Yazi, Evil the Yangzing. Yazi has the effect of your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Then you can use each of the following effects of Yazi, Evil the Yangzing once per turn, where you can target a Yangzing monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls to destroy them, which will usually be itself, because then you get its next effect of when this card you control is destroyed by battle or a card effect, and sent to the graveyard and special summon a worm monster from your deck in defense position. And you can only use each of those effects of Yazi, Evil the Yangzing once per turn. Next, I play one copy of Baxia, Brightness Enhancing. Baxia has the effect that when it's synchro summoned, you can target cards on your opponent's field up to the number of different attributes that were used for its synchro summon. Return them to the... Does it return to hand or deck? Because I always get that confused. The different attributes of warden monsters used for its synchro summon, shuffle them into the deck. And once per turn, you can target one card you control and one level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard. Destroy that card on the field, and if you do, special summon the other from the graveyard. And then next, I play 2 copies of Sword Soul Grandmaster Shishao. Shishao has the effect that on synchro summon, you can add a card to your hand or... Bleh. You can add a Sword Soul card from your deck to your hand or banish a Sword Soul card from your deck. And then quick effect, you can banish... specifically... You can banish a Sword Soul card or a worm from your hand or graveyard to then target one other effect monster on the field, and if you do, negate its effects. And you can only use each effect of Sword Soul Grandmaster Shishao once per turn. Then I play 1 copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. Draco Berserker of the Tenyi has the effect that when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can activate Draco Berserker's effect to banish that monster. And then if Draco Berserker destroys the monster in battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard so that Draco Berserker gains that monster's attack and can attack a second time. And you can only use each effect of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi once per turn. Next, I play 2 copies of Sword Soul, Sinister Sovereign. Oh boy. Qixing Longyuan. I'm butchering that card's name. But this card has the effect that when it's synchro summoned, or if you synchro summon another worm monster while its card's on the field, you can draw 1 card. If your opponent special summons a monster, except in a damage step, banish one of those monsters, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage. Now, if your opponent activates a spell or a trap card, you can banish that card, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage. This monster is basically just here so that if you go to game 3, you have ways of inflicting 1200 damage at least twice per turn. And usually if you're making this, you're using Long One, which means you're already inflicting another 1200. Then I also play 1 copy of Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Qingying. Qingying has the effect that it gains 100 attack and defense for every banished card, while your opponent's monsters lose 100 attack and defense for each banished card. Then it has another effect where if a card is banished, you can banish 1 card from your opponent's field and graveyard. And if Qingying would be destroyed by, I believe it is card effect. Let's see. Yeah, if it would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish 1 card from your graveyard instead. And you can only use each effect as Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Qingying once per turn. This is mainly just here to mess with your opponent's recurring resources, or to just make your opponent's monsters really small so that you can start going in for heavy damage. Then I play 1 copy of Baron de Fleur. Baron's mainly just in here because it is a generic level 10 synchro that is very good. Where once while it's face up on the field, you can negate, when opponent activates a card or effect, you negate that effect. And then once per turn, you can target 1 card in the field and destroy it. And finally, during your standby phase, you can target 1 level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard. Return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon that target. That last effect of Baron, I've honestly never seen anyone use, but you are able to use that to summon a monster back, so you can summon Baron again and have another Omni Negate. And then finally, the card I am testing is 1 copy of Psychic End Punisher. What I will probably end up doing is replacing Psychic End Punisher with something like Borload Savage Dragon, where you can target 1 of your Link monsters in graveyard so that you can give it increases attack by half that monster's attack, and then it gets Boral counters for that monster's Link rating, and then it's an Omni Negate by removing a Boral counter. Anyway, Psychic End Punisher has the effect that if your life points are lower than your opponent's, It becomes unaffected by your opponent's cards and effects. And then at the start of the battle phase, you can activate its effect so that it gains attack equal to the current difference in life points. And then I believe its last effect is something like pay 1,000 life points, target a monster you control, and one card your opponent controls, banish them. At the end of the battle phase... No, that's the other effect. And one thing I will point out is that its effect makes it unaffected by your opponent's card effects. So if you have this, your life points are lower, but you for some reason activate Dark Hole. Dark Hole will destroy your Psychic Again Punisher. But anyway, like I said, I'm probably going to replace Psychic Again Punisher for Savage Dragon. But for now, that is my Sword Soul deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas of decks like to see face each other, or decks like to see be made in the future, feel free to comment down below. Thank you so much for watching.